We're getting started. I'm seeing the stream is up. John is next to the heater. He's staying warm. Welcome, everybody, to the Season 2 finale of Good Morning Kyiv. I'm Andy Mercado with the legendary John Sweeney, who started this with us in July. You were our very first guest, and it's turned into such a thing now. And I sincerely appreciate you for kicking it off for us.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Obviously, winter's coming.
Yes, yes it is.
It's cold out here, and I'm there because I'm the older man. I'm getting the benefit of the heater, but thanks for that. So my voice is hoarse because we've just finished the 2 days of the of our festival. Vladimir Putin Do Fuck Off Festival. If you want the merch, just go to the website.
They can order it.
So vpdfo.org. Now, hold on. There's a problem with we haven't worked out how much shipping it will cost to America. But send an email. It's down the bottom of the thing, vpdfo.org, and we'll work out a way of getting this stuff. It's made here, made in Ukraine.
I'll put it in the description, you guys, after the stream. I'll make sure the link is there, and also John's social media, which any event that John holds or has here in Kyiv, he promotes. So it'll be on his Twitter.
Yeah, my Twitter is @JohnSweeneyRaw. So essentially, I mean, it's, Andrew, I've got one piece of advice. Never organize a festival in a city that might get nuked.
Yeah. You went against the grain here with that.
But at the same time, what we would do, two things. One is to tell people, actually three maybe, to tell people in the world that actually Ukraine is alive and kicking, that it isn't. There is a brutal war going on, that's absolutely true, and that's at the front of everybody's mind. But also, people live their lives here, and part of life is having fun.
Yes.
And so that was, so one thing is Ukraine is alive and kicking. Two is to create an event which makes some money for a basket of Ukraine charities. We've done that. We raised £5,000, which is, it's half what we did last year, but it rained the first day, and also interest in the war here has gone down. That's okay, I understand. But nevertheless, £5,000 for charities. But number three, everybody, there was a wonderful band, last band, Nazva, and everybody was circling around and dancing and having real fun.
Yeah.
And at the very end, the two lads, as their stuff was being packed in the van, they started doing some wonderful singing, and pretty much every chorus, we all had to down some vodka, which is why I'm feeling a little rough, I have to say.
How important is it for Ukrainians during this time to be smiling and dancing and enjoying life?
Oh, it's very important. There are two talks. There's a live stream which is on YouTube. And if you go to my Twitter, you can see where the talks are. But essentially, there's one talk on Saturday, one talk yesterday. Yesterday's talk, Sean Pinner. By the way, Sean Penn.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know the joke. So what happened was, there's this British guy called Sean Pinner who was fighting with the Ukrainians, was captured by the Russians, stabbed and tortured and electrocuted, and starved and sentenced to death, and eventually he was exchanged for some big pro-Kremlin oligarch. And he was actually freed by Roman Abramovich, the Russian who used to own Chelsea Football Club, and His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, also known as Mr. Bonesaw. But anyway, they've obviously, those two gents have got their own little agendas going on, but nevertheless, Sean was freed. The funny thing about Sean is, he was at the festival on Saturday, left to go for a drink with his mates, and some bloke said, "Oh God, there's this festival, and Sean Penn was there, and I've just missed him." and Sean Pinner said, "Are you sure it was Sean Penn?" Yeah, it was Sean Penn, talking at this VPDFO festival. Really? Penn? Anyway, yesterday, this is embarrassing. Anyway, I'll tell the whole story. What happens is, Sean talks about Sean Pinner. He's in the prison, and there's some gallows humour. right? They go for a shower.
Yeah.
And what happens is they're hooded, and as they go to the shower, they're beaten all the way through. The shower lasts like 15 minutes, and they switch off the water at 8 minutes, so they've still got soap on them. And then they're beaten all the way back. And then there's one of the lads is a Moroccan chap who is fighting with the Ukrainians too. The Moroccan's got a dry sense of humour, and he says, after they get back, and there's a camera, and they're not allowed to smile, but they're all, anyway, the Moroccan guy goes, next time I'm skipping the shower. and they're trying not to laugh, because if they laugh, they get beaten, because there's a camera, and they're going, And then another story Sean Pinner tells is, so there's, we're talking, back to camera, and 3 lads in the cell, Sean and 2 Ukrainians. Maybe somebody else actually. Anyway, Sean says, "Well, when I was captured, they stabbed me, and then they electrocuted me. Clips on the ear.
Yeah.
And then another guy goes, well, I've been waterboarded, and they put me in some contraption, and it was." And then the Ukrainian soldier said, "Well, I put electrodes on my balls, on my testicles." and they go, okay, you win. You win.
Oh,
and
my
so,
God.
And so this thing of gallows humor, and actually, although he was laughing, there was also, it was bittersweet. And then we also talked about my fixer-deamer is a wonderful chap. And we've been to Kherson and Bakhmut last year, and he's brave and good. It's June. He's in Kramatorsk having a pizza at the rear pizza place when the Russians put in a cruise missile. And one of the people there that's mortally injured, she dies a few days later, is Victoria Amelina, and he was driving her. So like he was sitting here, and she was there.
Yep.
Piece of shrapnel hits her, and kills her. And there's a guy. Anyway, he tells a story, but he's clearly upset. And then he points to a guy in the audience of the talk. By the way, that's Roman. Roman helped us. Roman's a soldier. And he said, "Go on, Roman, talk." And so this guy in the audience sort of stands up, and he's lovely English, handsome chap. And he says, he says to Dima, "Thank you for making me do this." But he says, hey,
and this is Roman saying
this.
this.
Roman, I'm a sniper. I'm a sniper, and I'm used to the war. When I go, I know that I'm gonna kill or be killed. I know that, but I'm fighting other soldiers. I get that. But to be in a pizza restaurant surrounded by girls and women and families, and to have to do combat medicine with kids and young women and mums and grannies, and I still have PTSD about it. And there was a kind of, you get to a moment like that, it's a moment of absolute truth. It's a moment that when I think of people like Trump and Tucker Carlson telling all these lies, it drives me mad. And at the same time, it's kind of deeply depressing, and there's this kind of tremendous gloom settled in the room. And I thought, I'm going to have to fight this. So I said, and I'm apologizing for the joke. But anyway, this is what I said. To lift the mood, I just turned to Sean and said, "Anyway, what's it like? What's Madonna like in bed?" Which is gallows humor.
So it was a good bridge to get out of that doom and gloom. It was such an event yesterday. You had a fashion show, which I actually was there for that whole thing, and that was a really good production. Who was the individual you had, the woman that you had speaking?
I think her name's Anna, and she is she is the sister of a friend of mine, Alex Koletsky, who's a famous Ukrainian. He's a bit of an explorer. He's very much into natural history. He's kind of like a middle-aged version of David Attenborough,
Yes.
that kind of guy.
Yes.
And I know Anna and her fashion through Alex, but she had this vision of that life comes through the soil from the black earth, and then there's the red, and then there's the white, something like this, and it was rather beautiful. And it was a fashion show. Then we had some comedians. Then we had some bands, and it was anyway. I really, 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 really don't want to do it ever again.
Right.
Because if Putin dies, then I don't have to do it.
No more celebration for.
By the way, this is the. We're both wearing the orange Vladimir Putin do fuck off hat. This is the funeral one. There's also a funeral hat, and this is VP HFO. Vladimir Putin has fucked off, and I can't wait to wear this. For real.
Right.
Anyway, at the moment it's an aspiration, but next year we'll do some things differently. More English language content.
Yeah.
But fingers crossed.
The one thing I must ask you too of this event, and there was the most powerful section I thought, was the photos that you had in the back room.
Yes.
Who did those?
Yes.
Who set that up?
So we'll set up a link for this. But there's a guy called Chris Occhicioni, who is a wonderful American. He's from New Jersey. He's a New Yorker.
Yeah.
And he took the pictures. And there is one. Chris's most famous picture is a woman called Nastia, who ran a dog shelter, and she's got all of these dogs on a lead. Some of them have broken their spine in car accidents, and they've got little mini wheelchair things. She's got 9 dogs, and she's taking basically the animals in her dog shelter out of harm's way because the Russians are coming. And there's a moment in this terrifying scene, and Chris, the sky is dark, the clouds are dark, there's snow in the air, and there's this brave woman, and the photograph is a beautiful image of Ukrainian resilience and Ukrainian heroism, and he captured that. And there's a second scene in a stabilization or MASH, the Americans would think of it as a MASH clinic, field hospital, 2 miles back from the zero line, from the very front line, and there's a kind of constant succession of people, of injured people in this place, and the 3 surgeons. There's a painting. It's a photograph, but it looks like a Caravaggio painting. 3 surgeons are dealing with a chap who's been injured, and basically the bullet's gone in there, or shrapnel, and stuck in there somewhere. So this is a terrible wound to deal with in a place like this. And they're 3 top surgeons, and they're all working on this guy. And then suddenly they look up, because off camera, somebody else has come in who from the looks on their faces is in an even worse state. And it's like, how do we deal with this guy and what's about to come at us? And the photograph is captioned "When you're ready, gentlemen." So you've got a sense of it. By the way, the nastier picture.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
With the dogs.
Yes.
I can tweet this if you want me. Shall I do it now?
Yeah, if you could tweet it.
Yeah. The nastier picture. We're going to organize. I'll do it afterwards because I need to get the details right. We're going to auction it again for VPDFO charities. So Chris's, and if you're in the States, we'll get it properly printed locally to you, so you get a print of it and you can bid for it. And all of the money will go to this stabilization clinic directly.
Beautiful.
It's a stunning thing. But you look at those pictures, and then you go to people like Trump and Tucker Carlson, and you go, what the hell?
What are they thinking?
Yeah.
Right, and that's my next topic. Is right now in America, because I'm American, we don't have a Speaker of the House. And we just had a round of spending that didn't have Ukraine aid on it because of internal politics. How important is it for Americans, Westerners, because even the Brits that are listening, to continue to support Ukraine?
Well, it's absolutely vital to do so, because because the West's apathy and boredom and fatigue are some of the best generals that Vladimir Putin has. So that the Ukrainians have courage and resilience, but they don't have a big enough economy to defeat Russia. And if we get bored, and we are getting bored, then that helps Vladimir Putin. And there's something else, Andrew, that helps Vladimir Putin, is Hamas's attack in Israel. And number one, this is, or the most important thing to say is, this is an evil thing. Basically, it's terrorists who are part of a death cult have gone in, crossed the affected border, and they have murdered and kidnapped completely innocent people who are civilians, who are not soldiers. And so this is a war crime, and it's an act of terror, and Hamas are terrorists. Just like the Russian state. Russia is a terrorist state, and the question is, are they connected?
Yeah, that's the other.
Well, so so Hamas is thick with Iran.
Yep.
And in this city, and you may even have heard them. I normally sleep through them because I drink too much and I fall asleep too heavily. But these Shahed drones, like the mopeds, have you heard them?
I have heard one, when I was in July.
That was made in Iran.
Yeah.
So here's the connection, folks. Hamas is close to Iran. Iran is close to Russia because Iran is sending for money its Shahed drones to Russia, and they're sending them here. So that's one. So that's easily provable. But there's something else as well. There was, and I'm going to write about this both in my Patreon and I've got a Substack. I'm going to plan to write about this today. That the Israelis were caught napping. Now this is a colossal intelligence failure by the Israelis, but it also means that Hamas and the kind of fanatical Palestinians have in Gaza have completely changed their game. They've upped their game. How so? How have they done this so well? And in particular, how have they managed to defeat the electronic warfare system of the Israelis?
Yeah.
And my working hypothesis, Andrew, is that the Russians have told the Iranians how to do that, and the Iranians have told Hamas. So, what's happening, so everybody understands? For example, in Bakhmut, which was held by the Ukrainians, then they lost it to the Russians earlier this year, and now it's held by the Russians, and the Ukrainians are attacking
on the flanks. Exactly.
Yeah. So this is a kind of a massive battle which keeps on continuing. Now, this is a real forge of new military ways of doing things. One of which is sending a drone over, and then you can get the drone to drop a grenade, and it hits a tank and bang.
Exactly. Yep.
So what you do is you set up jammers, the EW, electronic warfare jammers, and the jammers block the frequency on which the drone can move. So suddenly the drone operator cannot control the drone. Remember, both the Ukrainians and Russians are doing this.
Yep.
Ukrainians started out much better
Yes.
because they're more Western, they're more digitally advanced, but the Russians have caught up fast. The trick is that the drone skips frequencies. So at the moment the jammer blocks one frequency, it jumps and finds another one, and jumps and jumps and jumps.
And this is how it avoids detection.
Yes. My working hypothesis is that, and the Russians are doing this and very well, and there's a kind of game where the Ukrainians and Russians are coming up with more and more sophisticated jamming machines and then anti-jamming machines, right? And that technology the Russians have shared with the Iranians, or they've shared it directly with Hamas, because suddenly the world's attention is not on Ukraine.
Exactly, just like that.
Bang, it's gone. It's right down the bottom of the agenda. And who does that benefit?
Russia.
The Kremlin. Yeah. So, correct answer. So Putin will be very, very careful what he says in public. His lines will be scripted to the nth degree. But geostrategic facts are simple. A big war in the Middle East, or the threat of a big war, and certainly this terrible massacre of innocents that Hamas has committed, switches attention from here directly to Israel and Gaza. And that means that that is a great positive for Vladimir Putin and what he's trying to do. And what is America doing right now? Well, American government is not functioning.
Yeah.
So this is a perfect moment to do this. While America is at war, it seems, with itself, a civil war, a civil political war, with actors who actually side with Putin.
Directly.
There is no speaker, and to have some kind of function in the American government, they've knocked the Ukraine military aid off the budget. So this is very, very bad news for Ukraine. It's awful news for anybody who cares for peace, both from the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. But at the moment, this terrible war is going to continue. Hamas is a terrifying death cult, as I said, with an awful lot of support because of the state of living in Gaza. I've been there twice.
Oh, you have?
It's a grim place.
Yeah.
I went in 2003 to investigate the murder of my friend James, or the killing of my friend James Miller by a member of the Israeli Defense Force who turned out to be a Bedouin, who turned out to be an Arab, one of these guys who actually work for the Israelis.
Wow.
And eventually the Israeli government, he had press as wide as this, a light on him, and he was shot at night with a night sight. And basically the night sights they have, they turn night into day.
Yeah.
So that's a story. None of this excuses what Hamas is doing. Hamas is a terrorist death cult. But I believe Russian technology has helped Hamas get away with attacking Israel and killing innocents.
And Hamas has been an issue since the late 80s, correct? Or they've been a terrorist organization
Yes.
since 87, I believe?
Yes. So the problem is, for those of us, I have a lot of sympathy for the Palestinians, but I can only have sympathy for the Palestinians who respect the rules of war and the rule of law.
Right.
The problem is, because the Palestinian Authority has failed to get any kind of good solution to the political crisis, and that is because the Netanyahu government has been, I think in my view, too extreme. There are many Israelis who think this, and they've been hitting the streets again and again and again, very worried about some reforms to the judging system, the judiciary, which means that effectively that the Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, can kind of, if a judge says this is illegal, they can get round it.
Yep.
And that is not good. That is wrong in a democracy. Awful lot of Israelis on the streets. Now suddenly Hamas has attacked. And you've got this awful situation. You had it in Northern Ireland, where you have the extremists in the IRA feeding off the extremists on the Protestant side, and the two, and peace and some kind of common decency goes out of the window. Once again, Hamas is a terrorist death cult, but the person who is benefiting the most from this slaughter is Vladimir Putin. So you've got chaos now in Africa, chaos here for a year and a half, and now chaos in the Middle East, and the beneficiaries are the dictators, Putin and Xi in China. And meanwhile, our most powerful democracy, America, is at war with itself.
Literally. It kind of all seems like it was by design in a sense, or are they smart enough to design such a thing, or is it just they kind of play it and then make moves based upon what's presented?
There's somebody who used to be a senior officer in the British Army has told a friend of mine that this has got Russian military intelligence written all over it, because it's so well done.
Yeah.
It's so well done. So I feel that, but I can't prove that, and it's important to be smart about this. But it is true that one of Hamas's political chiefs has been to Russia 3 or 4 months after the big war started. So Hamas goes and he meets the foreign minister Lavrov.
Yeah.
So Hamas has been to Russia. Hamas does not go to Washington D.C. or London.
Of course not.
But it goes there. So what's that mean, folks? It means that there is a serious political connection between Hamas and Russia. And if you've got a political connection, we're friends, we're having tea together, behind the scenes, what are the Russian generals telling the Hamas military people? And are they sharing with them this stuff? Or the other version, which does not put Russia in the clear at all, is when the Iranians sell Shahed drones to the Russians, are the Russians giving them stuff in return? For example, have they been sharing anti-jamming technologies? Of course they have, because the Shaheeds are being hit by jammers, so that is part of it.
Yeah.
So the Iranians can very easily give it to their friends in Hamas. And so that is, so what you've got essentially is you have Hamas, Iran, Russia, North Korea, China. And then on our side you have America and Britain and all the democracies and Ukraine. But the problem right now is America, at least, is at war with itself, and it doesn't have a functioning government.
We've handicapped ourselves, or it's decapped ourselves right now, and it's kind of like by design. What happens from here? Like last night, because I got to go to bed too, so I can't be up on America news. But warships are moving in the Mediterranean. Operation Iron Sword, I believe it's called. What happens to Gaza now? What's going to happen?
Well, Netanyahu has made, well, his government, and by the way, the security minister is described, he's from the far right. He has, well, in simple English, he's been asleep at the wheel. Yeah. And so the Netanyahu government has a serious charge against them that they are guilty of a massive intelligence failure, albeit if there is Russian involvement. Anyway, it's certainly true to say that Hamas have really, really upped their game. But if you're in this situation, a thing to do is to say, right, we are now going to invade Gaza completely and take it over. The problem with that is that if you occupy Gaza, you will lead, there will be, it's an incredibly densely built up place, buildings everywhere, and there will be an enormous loss of life on both sides. Certainly the Palestinians will die in great number, but so will a lot of Israeli soldiers. So I cannot see that it makes sense for there to be a long-term occupation of Gaza. The problem remains. And this is fundamentally a political problem, how you resolve it. You resolve it, I believe, by a two-state solution. Yeah. One place is Palestine, the second place is Israel. But and therefore Israel needs to soften its tone over time, but not now, because of what's happened. Of course. But because of what's happened, I believe that it's very likely that there will be a military invasion by the Israelis. They will go into Gaza, and then the question is, what will Iran's response be? And now we all know that Iran is getting very close to having a nuclear bomb. It's probably got one. So there is a possibility of nuclear war between Israel and Iran. I don't think that's likely, because I think what what Iran is seeking to do is put enormous pressure on Israel, but but that they know if they do that, the Israelis will strike back. The Israelis have definitely got nukes. So I think that what you will have is a bloody invasion of Gaza. The Israelis are the much stronger force. They can go in and they can occupy. Over time, say, a year, the price in blood of that occupation, it will be immense for the Palestinians, but it'll start going up for the Israelis as well. And then and then at some point, they'll be forced to pull out. And then you go back to politics, which is, how do we solve this problem so that people, an enormous number of people don't end up. But for the moment, the entire world's focus will be on that.
Yes.
And I fear that the fear of people here is that there will be some kind of military stalemate, that will continue here, and Ukraine will find it more and more difficult to get the West's attention while everybody is focused on Israel-Palestine.
Absolutely. There's another organization that starts with an H that people might be a little ignorant on. It's called Hezbollah.
Yes, so
Who are they?
So Hezbollah is the party of God, and these are it's another terrorist organization based effectively in the south of Lebanon, consisting of mainly Palestinian refugees. These are the grandchildren of the generation of Palestinians who fled when the Israelis won the Israeli-Palestine War in 1948. This is the foundation of Israel. For the Palestinians, it was a great disaster, catastrophe in their view. Many people fled to refugee camps, which aren't really camps. These are concrete blocks in the south of Lebanon. And as ever, when people have no hope, they go to the extremes. So this is an extremist group. And while the Israelis are focused on the Hamas terrorists in Gaza, it makes every logical sense for Hezbollah to start making hell for the Israelis in the north. So Israel is cut both ways. Now, it may be that Hamas did not trust Hezbollah because Hezbollah may be better penetrated by Israeli intelligence, so they didn't let them in on the secret.
I see.
That's my working hypothesis. But this having now happened, then I think that they will start attacking and make it or doing something, so that Israel has got to fight on two fronts.
How can myself, as a young budding journalist that wants to continue covering current events, talk about the conflict, but also not distract away from what's going on here in Ukraine? Because obviously I'm going to have to talk about it and learn about it, but how do I do it?
I feel, what I'm going to do is, immediately after this, is go back and do some research, understand how often, I want to understand the depth of the relationship between Hamas and the Kremlin, the observable stuff, and I want to talk to people who are experts in electronic warfare, so that I can understand properly the things that I've been talking about here. I've got a sense of them, but I want to know in detail all of those things. At the same time, we're journalists. We have to deal with the news, and the news is what's happening in Israel-Palestine. So for the moment, the war continues. Remember, Ukraine has done very, very well in terms of the Black Sea. That the navies run away, the Russian navies run away, and the grain ships are getting through. These are great successes. The problem that Ukraine has got is that General Boredom is probably the only Russian general Vladimir Putin can really trust.
General Boredom.
And Boredom is on Russia's side.
That's absolutely true. What do you see that Ukraine needs most right now going into the winter?
It needs the Atacams. It needs the Atacams, and it needs the F-16s, and it needs a big military settlement from America, which can get through the American political machinery without it being sort of blocked as it currently is. So that's a real mess. But the problem is, of course, is the hard right Republicans who are gumming up the machinery of American government are sympathetic to what Vladimir Putin is trying to do. So I look at these people, maybe unwitting. Some I think may be witting, but they are agents of the Russian dark state. So America's allies, Israel and Ukraine, are fighting for their lives, while a chunk of the American governmental machinery is working hand in glove with the Kremlin. And we've got to fix this. America's got to fix this. And remember, the number one Republican candidate by far, and the man the bookies say is going to win at the next general election in the States, is Donald Trump. I am scared.
It's a scary time. It's a real thing. He has so much support still. Do you have any advice for me? When I get back home, I leave today, actually, unfortunately. But I'm going to a summit in Washington, D.C., a Ukraine Action Summit at the end of October. What do I say to these politicians on Capitol Hill?
Well, what I would say to them is that there is a serious relationship between Russia and Hamas. There's you yourself have heard Iranian military technology come from Russia to kill you.
Yes.
Right? This isn't make believe. You've heard it with your own ears, and that means that there is a connection between Russia and Iran. There is also provably a political connection between Russia and Hamas, and also my hypothesis is that there is a military connection too. It all makes sense to me, and therefore, let's be clear. Russia's friend is our enemy. Russia's friend Hamas is our enemy, and if Hamas is Israel's enemy, Hamas is our enemy, and Hamas is a way of the Russians distracting the world's attention from this war. Russia wants to win this war, or it wants a frozen peace, a stalemate here. And that's also good for Russia because it destroys Ukraine's hopes of being its own nation state entire and whole. So Russia is using Hamas as a distractor, and it's working. And so the message, I think, to the important folks in Washington is, don't be deceived here. You're being conned. This is terrible, and you've got to worry about it. We've got to fix it, what's happening in the Middle East. But it is also a distraction.
I understand.
And by the way, America is rich and powerful enough to fight on both fronts. There's something else I proposed at the festival, and I'm going to launch a campaign about it, and it's this, is that Ukrainian prisoners of war never see anyone from the International Red Cross in Russia. Russian prisoners of war are checked up on by the International Red Cross here in Ukraine. So, the message from all of the Western capitals, remember, Russia has an economy poorer and smaller than Spain. We are so much more economic, we have so much more economic strength. Sorry, I'm tired from the festival.
No, you're fine. You're doing amazing. And it's cold too. You're doing great.
But we have so much more economic strength than Russia.
Yeah.
Let's just use it, at least to defend the rules of war. So, we should say to Russia, we're going to kick you off the international banking system, all Russian banks out of the international banking system in 1 month's time, unless you allow the International Red Cross to inspect and check Ukrainian prisoners of war are being treated properly. And I cannot see anyone being able to argue that the ICRC can check on Russian prisoners of war but not Ukrainian ones. It's a straight wrong. What's happening is that the Russians are torturing and killing Ukrainian prisoners of war. And Sean Pinner is a witness to that, one of the guests at my festival. I've co-authored this book called Putin's Prisoner with Aidan Aslin.
Wonderful man. I got to meet Aidan.
Yeah, and he's another witness to this, but there are countless witnesses, and the evidence is overwhelming. Russia is torturing its Ukrainian prisoners of war. So, to the West, pull your finger out. Say to Russia, you're off the international banking system unless you give visiting rights to the International Committee of the Red Cross. Do that now, or you're off the international banking system. Do you understand? We've had enough of this. We need to stand up to Russia. We need to stand up and use our power. It's going to be difficult. We now have 2 fronts, right? Actually, we've got 3 because there's Africa. So, by the way, if I was you, and if you have the resources, I would go to Israel, and I would go and see for yourself.
Wow, okay.
And I'd also, I mean, where I'm not going at the moment is Africa, partly because the places I'd like to go to are now controlled by the Russians. And, you know, car accident, wrong kind of tea. I fall over the balcony.
The window gets...
Yeah. You know the list, man. You know the list, so you've got to watch it. But this is kind of like, well, it feels like a Third World War. Now, it's not a war where Western capitals are being hammered. At least not yet, fingers crossed. I don't think that's going to happen. But we have the money and the resources to fight all of these things. We can help Israel, we can help Ukraine, we can help our friends in Africa. But we need to apply our mind, and we need to unglue the American machinery of government. He won't sell an ice cream if he goes with that.
Hey, anything you have going on, any projects that are upcoming, books, or anything that you would like to advertise?
I want to fall asleep.
Yes.
I'm advertising my real wish to fall asleep. VPDFO, if you can send some money, you can look at these 2 talks. I'll put it up on Twitter with the timings so you can see them both. And I want to, and then I'm actually working on a novel about the Battle of Kyiv, and a couple of publishers are interested in my memoirs, but I've got to write them. One working title is How Not to Be a Reporter.
Oh, wow.
Another one is Shifting History, which I kind of like.
That's a good one.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Final thoughts that you didn't get out that you would like to say to the people watching before we sign up for the day?
This is, it's grim at the moment. It's grimmer than before. But at the same time, we must stand by our friends in Israel, our friends in Africa, and yes, here too. We must stand by our friends in Ukraine, because their fight is our fight. It's a simple thing. We're fighting for decency, for common decency, for respect of others, for democracy through the rule of law, for being kind, not cruel to strangers. And you know, this is how, I mean, listen, I'm no Archbishop of Canterbury or anything like it, honestly, but I try and live as good as life as I can, flesh and bones as I am, and the idea that some kind of fascism is abroad, slitting people's throats, firing Shaheed drones at us, killing kids, killing 50 people the other day in this village in the east, near Kupiansk. No, enough already. We must stand up and stand by our friends and help Ukraine.
Thank you so much, John, for your amazing words and coming on my morning show. You started it with us in July. Amazing final guest. I'm upset I have to leave, but I know I'll be back with more vehicles and more aid. I got to go back to the States and get some work done, get in the ears of the people on Capitol Hill to share what I've seen and continue spreading the word of Ukraine. So thank you guys again for tuning in. Season finale. Hope you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, support John's social media, which I will put in the description, and his website where you can support his Vladimir Putin Do Fuck Off event and merch and everything. It's just amazing, you guys, and support John's efforts here, because even though I'm leaving, he'll still be here in Ukraine, probably more than I can, and he does his daily war diaries on his Twitter that are great information, so I'll have that for you guys there. Thank you guys again for tuning in, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Slava Ukraine.
Aram Slava.
Let's go. Oh, and we have what do we have? We have one final message. We have for Vladimir Putin.
Oh, yeah. And we have one final message for Vladimir Putin. It goes like this. Vladimir Putin, do fuck off.
Have a good day. Have a good day, everyone. All right.